Since I don't have Wi-Fi, my videos are taking forever to upload, so I'm going to make them short. You can go back through my other videos and see how Christianity ended in AD 70, and that's what this is about too. But just giving some information on some things about how Israel birthed Christ. That this is the way that the world works. The more that people are preaching the truth today, the more that the world will change because of us changing. We do things like that. But sex was a sin in the garden. Got that in other videos. God called Israel a people. They had to have a seed to bring Christ. Whenever he called Abraham, he said, sacrifice your son. And then he said, don't do it. God will give you a sacrifice. He'll provide a lamb. That lamb was Jesus Christ. Abraham had Isaac. Isaac had Jacob. Jacob was renamed Israel and had 12 sons. Now, Jacob was given the place where the temple would be built and everything. But this is, the point in this video is they were given circumcision. Circumcision was cutting off the skin where the seed comes from, the evil seed, so revealing the flesh. When they entered into a covenant with God, it gave God power over their flesh. But the more of them that were circumcised, the more of them that were eunuchs, the more of them that were virgins, the more of them that cried, the more of them that prayed, they were able to, when the time was come, birth Christ. They gave birth to Christ so that God would have power to send him into the world. And this was the reason for calling Israel. He needed a people that a seed could come from. This was the reason that it all seemed messed up. He had to keep the seed holy. He had to keep other people out of the seed. It was all about bringing Christ. That's why the first thing that he told Abraham was that. That's why circumcision and bloodily cutting off the head of your foreskin was able to finally birth a virgin. And that virgin, sent by God, would be able to redeem mankind. It would cover their flesh, just like the blood of the foreskin did. Now its holy blood covers that seed and where it comes from. Once that holy blood covered everything, God was able then to fulfill the law. Jesus went up to fulfill the law. Jesus came to fulfill the law and the prophets. Did he do it while he was here? No. But whenever he went up, nobody in heaven or on earth had power to do this except for the lamb slain. The lamb was able to open the seals to start that war, to fulfill the law. He was able to take the throne and to give the world back to God, and he did it in a short work. This is why you have Israel. They were called in Joseph. Joseph told his parents about his dreams, and he said the sun and the 12 stars and the moon. And they said, are we supposed to worship you, fall down and worship you? You know, because he was the one with the seed, where the seed would come from and bring Jesus Christ. He was the one that had to keep going. The line of the ones that were obedient. And they birthed Christ. There was a woman in Revelation chapter 12. She was clothed with the sun, and upon her head was 12 stars, or upon her crown was 12 stars, and under her feet was the moon. Now the moon went bloody in that day, and the sun did not give her light, because Israel was the sun, Israel was the moon, Israel was the stars. If you look back at Joseph and his dreams, and Israel knew this. So the sun was darkened. Israel was not the light of the world anymore in that day, and it was destroyed, and that was the blood running down on the moon, and the moon was covered in blood in those days. All right, the 12 stars on her crown, that's the 12 tribes of Israel, and they travailed in birth and brought forth a son that was to rule the nations with a rod of iron, which it did. And then Michael and the angels fought against the dragon and cast the dragon out. And Satan went to make war with the remnant of the seed, because that was all that was left. Jesus came to get a remnant. People read that and think that it's the remnant in the last days, but it was all of Israel, and there was a remnant left at the end. A remnant would be saved. So Satan went to make war with all of them, went to make war with the remnant of the seed. That was the last days. But they were chased into the wilderness, and then they were with Christ. 144,000 being the first fruits unto God, followed the Lamb whithersoever they went. Whenever the armies came to Israel, they were with Christ in Israel, ruling. They were transfigured, and they ruled with Christ and reigned for 1,000 years. That was the first resurrection, right? Upon which the second death had no power. These are the ones that got out, that did not take the mark of the beast, because they were out before it was even given. They were told to flee before the beast's rule of 42 months, of 1,260 days. Whenever the armies came to Jerusalem, and the Gentiles trampled the city underfoot, and they destroyed the temple. They laid them even with the ground. They compassed them about on every side, just as Jesus said. But the believers were out, and the 144,000 were caught up. The dead 144,000 and the living 144,000 were caught up. These were the first fruits unto God. And after that, it says that the angels sounded, but the 144,000 were with God before it said, don't take the mark of the beast, before the mark of the beast was given. They were already with Christ. That's why they didn't take his mark. They overcame Satan. They got out. And then once they got out, then it was able for God to destroy Israel, because there was no more believers in Israel. Once all this happened, this was about bringing humanity back to God. Okay? God separated Abraham, yes, but he could not separate Abraham from the physical seed that actually happened. Okay? Abraham was called in faith 400, 600 years before the law was given, circumcision was given. The law came later as transgression because of the transgression of Israel. They had to have a law, which was a curse, because they weren't obeying his covenant. But Abraham was part of humanity. Okay, he wasn't born like God. People act like Israel only, that it's only Israel. Abraham was brought out of us, out of all of the world. Okay, he was separated so that he could bring forth Christ, so that Christ could completely finish everything and redeem the whole world back to God. The whole world back to God. He needed a seed to be obedient, to fulfill the law, to bring Christ so that he could overcome and shed his blood for all of humanity, not just Israel. So you come back to God. Sorry, looks like somebody's staring at me because I'm looking out a window right here. So I got a little confused. All right, well, kind of lost my train of thought, but Israel, the point in this video was that Israel had to be made to birth Christ through their travail, through their prayers, through circumcision. They birthed Christ, but Christ did a short work. He delivered the kingdom back up to God, and now God is all and in all, and we are redeemed back to Adam's state. But everybody that's gone back to religions, Islam, Christianity, all of it, you completely reject this new spiritual world that we live in. It's completely rejected. He covered that seed, guys. Circumcision is nothing now. Sometimes I get sad. I just don't know why people can't see this. I can use the whole Bible from front to back and tell you every single thing, and it comes down to whether or not you're a liar or whether or not you tell the truth. And that's all it is.